way that they interview, in the same way that we saw Peter so was very serious.
Yeah, good. You?
Nee, Hector. Oh. Hector, kom. Hekkie. Kom. Hectortje, kom. Hekkie. Kom, Hekkietje. Hector, kom. Kom, Hekkie. Hector. Hector, kom. Kat, telefoon alsjeblieft. Hector, kom. Hector, kom.
Vicky. 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 Ela hoće ti djekći. Ja, Hector. Vicky. Ela hoće.
Kom her.
Djekći.
Ja.
welcome along. Thanks for joining us. It is time for the elite men's race here on the penultimate round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup for this winter. Maasmechelen, the Eyes the Mind site, plays host to the Maasmechelen World Cup. It's 9 degrees Celsius. It's a 6 km/h wind. It's mostly sunny for this afternoon, which is in stark contrast to last year, where it was a huge mud fest with Mathieu van der Poel taking the win ahead of Wout van Aert and Joris Nieuwenhuis. The World Cup looks like this so far. Thibaut Nys taking those first wins in Tabor and Flamanville. Michael Mantora now when we went down to Italy. Mathieu van der Poel backing up those victories with Thibaut Nys getting his third of the season. And the World Cup standings now look like this. Mathieu van der Poel sitting at the top with 240 points to Thibaut Nys' 220. Niels van der Putte third with 197. And Mathieu van der Poel has an opportunity today to tie Sven Nys with 50 career victories. He has the opportunity out and out the most successful World Cup winner in the history of cyclocross. Let's hear from him now.
The overall victory in the World Cup is still an option for you. How important is that?
It's not so important, but of course it would be nice to win the overall. With the win in Benidorm, I think I have a good chance, but let's see after this weekend.
Sun's out today. What do you think will make the difference on the dry course here in Maasmechelen?
Yeah, it's completely opposite than we saw last year here, where it was a real mud fest, and I prefer the mud, of course. I think a lot of my colleagues do as well, but yeah, it's something different. It's really nice weather. It's actually quite warm as well, so for the spectators, it's going to be a nice day.
The last weekend of racing for the World Championships. What are you looking for?
Oh, just good feeling, I think, but of course, yeah. I have experience enough to know that next week everything starts all over again, and the rider that wins next week is world champion. So also even if I've won all the races, also for me it starts from zero again.
Thibaut Nys, the sun's out here in Maasmechelen today. Are you afraid of punctures with a rocky course?
Maybe, could be possible, but it's been worse here, I think, in the last few years. So I hope that it doesn't take like too much part into the race. Yeah, I'm looking forward.
It's the last double race weekend before the World Championships. Are you looking for a good result or just a good feeling in the legs? What's important?
Both, just having fun. It's 3 more hours of full gas racing left, so I want to leave it all out there and make the best out of it.
Tibor Del Grosso here in Maasmechelen, quite a technical course, a lot of stones, a lot of up and down. Is it something that suits you?
Yeah, I think so. I quite like the short technical and bit of punchy stuff. So yeah, it's also very rocky, so we'll be a bit careful with not getting a flat tire. But no, it's a nice course.
Will that be an issue, you think, today? Flat tires for everyone?
No, yeah, maybe the risk is a bit higher here, but then I also think everyone will just ride a bit more pressure. So hopefully, everyone gets spared.
In Benidorm, you went full gas pretty early. Are you going to choose a different race plan today, a bit more, settled down and try to follow Mathieu, maybe?
Yeah, maybe, but to my feeling, it wasn't that full gas the first lap. I think we also just rode away because Stone crashed on the barriers. But yeah, just didn't have the best legs then, so hopefully now they're a bit better and I can try and follow Mathieu. Yeah.
Okay, to hear from Mathieu van der Poel, Thibaut Nys and Thibaut Del Grosso. Thanks for joining us. Martin McDonald and Ian Field with you to take you through the elite men's race. And it's one of those dangers, isn't it? The tyres, the punctures. You know, we look at the program, we look at the stats for Mathieu van der Poel so far this season, unbeaten in cross this winter.
Yeah, very much so. In a row now, being unbeaten since Benidorm, I think it was 2024. So yeah, obviously the man to beat here, and like you said, going for that overall World Cup elite record win today.
So Thibaut Nys' stats for the season. We have Niels van der Putte. Could be a good course for him today. UCI ranking of 3. He's third overall. Bit up and down for Van der Putte when you look at his placing so far this season.
In the World Cup, yeah. In the other series, he's been so good. That's probably taken a little bit of priority. So good in the Super Prestige and the X2O as well. Just a little bit up and down, like you say, in the World Cups and a little bit recently. But I'd have thought he's been doing some big road camps down in the Benidorm area. So maybe a little bit of fatigue in the legs and hopefully on the way back up towards the World Championships last year, which don't forget is where he took his only World Cup elite win so far in his career last season.
Going arts, we look at hoping for better luck today, as Thibaut Del Grosso alluded to and mentioned in the interview, was that crash at the planks last week in Benidorm. Mace Hendricks, what a season Mace Hendricks is having. You can see his results so far. And I think if you told Mace Hendricks he'd be on the front row of the grid in the World Cups at the beginning of the season, he probably wouldn't have believed you.
No, currently 9th overall and having his best season to date. He equalled his best World Cup result ever last weekend in Benidorm with that 6th place. Like you say, having a brilliant season so far.
Joris Niedenhuis, another rider that's had a few issues so far this season, and that knee injury that they thought might take him out for the rest of the season, it hasn't done. They've managed it race on race. And then Joram Visura, another rider, started the winter so strongly, didn't he? And then it's been kind of quite up and downy throughout the year.
It has, as those literary results on screen show for him, but 10th last week in Benidorm, again, another rider, part of that Rudhoff team's setup, would have been down in Spain doing some really big miles. So like all these riders, it's that final weekend before the World Championships where you almost don't want to be too good too early. You still want that high workload to be sinking in a little bit into the body.
Just saw the mechanics running back towards the pits. Anna Kay just on the barriers there. To support. The riders are under orders and they're just getting rid of the jackets, and the mechanics, they bring a bike, bring some wheels, and the support team collect all the clothing. We'll get a view here of what the riders are riding here today. Intermediate treads for most riders, you would say today?
Yeah, looks like it, although looked like Cameron Mason had a little bit more on the front of that Stevens bike, maybe a baby Limas or a Flandrian. And there you go, completely different for Thibaut Del Grosso. He absolutely loves the small bird from Dugast, probably one of the only riders to bother gluing a set of those up each season, but he does like them in these faster conditions. Another little point, Mace Hendricks on the tubeless Schwalbe tyres, so completely different to all the other riders pretty much in this race who will be running the tubular setup where the tyre is glued onto the rim.
Yeah, Zoe Backstead also runs that, doesn't she, as well?
Yeah, the technology is getting better and better when it comes to those tubeless setups. I've heard rumours to stop them burping, potentially gluing the tyre a little bit onto the rim to stop it coming away from that bead. But yeah, some little witchcraft tips and tricks going on to make that setup work potentially.
We're under orders. Let's run you through a few of your other rows. So, right, the back row, we've got the likes of Artur Nishvolodov of Ukraine. Forward from there, Kazuka Endo and Yuta Okayama from Japan. And then coming forward, row 2, you've got Jente Mikkels, Kevin Koog, Cameron Mason, Pim Ronhoff, Felipe Orts, Toon van der Bos, Ryan Kamp, and Lars van der Haar. Row 3, we have the likes of Martin Gros-Lambert, who had such a great ride last week. And then on row 4, Remy Lalonde, who had his best result in a World Cup last week. Also on that row as well, Govan Kuipers. Watch the lights. Time to go racing in the penultimate ride round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup. Thibaut Del Grosso, Mathieu van der Poel, and Niels. Oh, big crash. Oh, big pile up, unfortunately. Looks at Pim Ronhoff. Oh, rider over the top. We get such a fast start here that we have, and riders going down. That's Wout Janssen, unfortunately. Pim Ronhaar has gone down, and Joran Vistura, what a shame for Joran Vistura, has also gone down.
Really hard crash. It's cyclocross on the whole, you get away with crashing, but it just those crashes at the start when the speed is so high on that tarmac section, very, very dangerous. Looked like potentially Vistura was the first one to go down on the left-hand side as we look at it. Oh no, as Ronhaar went down completely, lost control of the bike somehow, maybe a slip of gears or something, just came unclipped. And then there was that second problem for Wout Janssen. All the other riders' right foot went into his front wheel, sent him way over the top. Vistura in a lot of pain. Really hope he's okay, he's getting the attention that he needs.
Yeah, such a shame. He's just not had the luck this season, Joran Vistura. As we said, it's been so up and down for him. We hope he's okay. As we go to the front, Cameron Mason has just thrown down the power here on the opening lap, the British champion. Oh, that's a shame as well. It's Daniel Nielsen of Denmark has also gone down. You can see quite a lot of pain as well.
There's a really large number of riders that got caught up in that crash on the finishing straight. But as you said, Cameron Mason, newly crowned British champion, making a go of this on the opening lap. The form hasn't been what it was early in the year, but absolutely waiting for no one on this fast technical course here today. Thibaut Del Grosso just riding tempo behind, letting that gap open up to the Scottish rider.
Here's Cameron Mason playing the game of catch me if you can here on the opening lap. Del Grosso, Kim, Van der Putten, Van der Poel, Nace, Arts, Hendricks, Niebenhouse, Van der Bos, Van der Haar, Meekles and Orts going through your picture. There's the Swiss champ, comes up to the front of the group. Now to give chase to the British champ from Seven Racing.
Kevin Kuhn wise to the fact that Thibaut Del Grosso and Cameron Mason, although not in the same kit, part of the bigger kind of setup from the Rudhoff brothers, trained together all the time, very, very good friends off the bike, and potentially that coming into play here today with the way Del Grosso was just riding tempo behind, certainly not trying to chase down Cameron Mason's fast start.
Yes, being left up to the Heisermat Cube rider to give chase here in Kevin Kuhn, but good to see Cameron Mason. Great start by the Scottish rider here in that British Champions jersey. And this is it. I mean, Cameron is a very good championship rider, isn't he? So in terms of peaking for the Worlds next week, he'll be coming back onto form. Joran Vistura, really feel for him. He's really taken a big hit as Joran, and they're sensibly just taking their time, you know, in terms of making sure he's okay before they do anything.
Of course, it was a big crash. You'll be in shock. There's no point moving a rider in that situation. I'm sure when the riders come round towards the end of the first lap, they can clearly make that course a little bit kind of not as wide and allow the riders to go to the right-hand side of him, hopefully waiting for the medical staff to get to him to address his problems.
Lap one, as Cameron Mason dismounts for the run-up here, as we go back to Kevin Kuhn and world champion Mathieu van der Poel for the Alpecin Premier Tech team. Thibaut Del Grosso is in there. Mason, does he manage to ride all the way up? He doesn't, but he just has to skip at the top. Kevin Kuhn, good power there. Look at Kevin Kuhn. Van der Poel makes it over. Del Grosso has to dab. So does Van der Putten. The rest of the riders off and running. Orts goes down onto the knees. Meekles struggling to find his feet there.
It's a really tricky dismount for right-handed riders. They get off to the left of the bike. It means that all that weight on that left pedal and the bike actually kind of sliding, pushing away from them down the camber makes for a tricky dismount. So positioning into that, absolutely key. The first one or two riders can carry enough speed into it. When you're further behind in the group, naturally you kind of don't attack the hill as much as the rider in front of you, as you're trying to allow a bit of a gap to open up to that wheel in front. Probably better off leaving a bigger gap on the flatter section before you reach the climb. Is that... No, looks all good. I thought for a moment there Van der Poel had a rear wheel puncher, but looks all good.
Back to the front, British champ, Swiss champ, world champ, Dutch champ. Then a small gap back to the opposite de Koenig rider Niels van der Putte, Belgian champ, Thibaut Nace going through just ahead of our European champion, Toon Arts. Our Spanish champ, Felipe Orts, what an outing he had on home soil last week. But the gap has been closed up here by Kevin Kuhn to Cameron Mason. Good to see the Scottish flag flying just on the left of your picture.
Just a small gap opening up. Del Grosso back to teammate Van der Putte. It's all one long line through this section, of course, into the sand pit for the first time. Shouldn't be any problem for these riders here today. Van der Poel making a move to get up and around Kevin Kuhn. Is he going to make it?
Looked like he was just carrying a little bit more extra speed and momentum through there. In and out, be careful. Because we're absolutely slated for in the week on social media for today here in Maasmechelen.
It's because it's a sand track today.
Exactly. Group of four: Cameron Mason, Thibaut Del Grosso, Mathieu Van der Poel, and Kevin. Very, very different to the Mudfest of last year. Mason looks back over the shoulder, and you can see they're just being pointed out around Joran Bissura here, who's still receiving medical attention. So really hope Joran is okay. Niels van der Putte goes through. So, who just found his way through. There's Gerben Kuipers going through. David Manu, Theo Thomas, Loris Rouillet. They're also out there, but Cameron Mason not keen to relinquish this front position here.
No, he isn't. Just pressing on at the front. It's a good place to be on this course.
It is a big day for Mathieu van der Poel. Never says he's chasing records, but to equal 50 World Cup wins by Sven Nys, that would be a huge achievement.
It really would, and I think when Sven Nys did that, it was like, well, no one's going to break that for many, many years to come, and already we're talking about Mathieu van der Poel, even at the slightly younger age that he is compared to when Sven Nys took that 50th win in Coxsider. It's just amazing to watch, and you just have to stand up and applaud a rider like Van der Poel, the way he goes about his business, winning in such different conditions across so many seasons and up against so many different rivals over the years as well.
And that's it. It doesn't matter what the course is, what the conditions are going.
Absolutely. He's just that little bit better on the whole than everybody else in pretty much every condition. We've obviously seen over the years the battles against Wout van Aert, and obviously Wout van Aert out with that ankle injury, already back training pretty hard down in Spain himself, but obviously no more cyclocross for that man this season.
Sven Nys, 273 career pro wins for him. Mathieu van der Poel, 180 current pro victories for Mathieu van der Poel, but he's edging close, is Van der Poel, to nearly 300 career wins through all categories. Is the world champion, and he's of course chasing that out and out rainbow jersey next week of Eric de Vlaeminck. He's got 7 wins as Mathieu van der Poel, 7 apiece. A win next week would take him to 8. Marianne Vos has 8 titles in women's cyclocross. Van der Poel looking to do the same in the men. This is a mighty start from the British champ today. I'm loving the confidence here of Cameron Mason.
It's very much a course that suits his style, is very good technically, and although the dry conditions here today is a fast-flowing course and that higher speed everywhere can even make the most simple of corners much more technical. It's not like the mud of last year where we saw very, very tricky conditions, but these conditions, a completely different technical element as we see them up over the planks again once more. All these riders riding them here today.
Thibaut Nace has made contact with the back of the group here as well, the Belgian champion. Then the green of Heisermack Cube is Mace Hendricks, who opts to run the planks. Nievenhouse finding a hop in behind. Decent group. The Belgian champion gets on here. This is important for Thibaut Nace as well in terms of that World Cup GC. Sits second overall, 220 points for Thibaut Nace. Mathieu van der Poel leading with 240. A decent front group. You can see here you've got the representatives in here from that Roadhof setup with Cameron Mason in colours of 7 Racing. The Alpecin Premier Tech riders Van der Poel, Van der Putte and Del Grosso and Heiser McCube represented here from Kevin Kuhn. Kuhn's got a great start, the Swiss champ.
He has. He's been really good this season so far. His best World Cup result to date is a 3rd place in Val di Sole in the snow there. As we see Nace making a move as well, just trying to move up past Van der Putte. Wants a better position within the leading group. Positioning very key on this course, especially coming towards those steep cambered banks that the riders have to ride up.
Indeed, over the bridges. They're steep as well, these bridges today.
Very steep, almost another feature to this course that probably don't talk about enough, because it takes an awful lot of power sometimes to get up over those bridges. Very short recovery section, back down, big compression at the bottom of them normally. Very tricky remount at the top of that bank, and then a big compression at the bottom when you might not be fully clipped back into the bike. Here we are up onto one of these camber climbs. You see there, it's so easy for the rear wheel under the pressure of you pedaling up the climb to just step out from underneath you.
Cameron Mason nailed that perfectly there. Hendricks goes down, Arts tries to ride it, and you saw him there just having to just hang that left foot out as he hit the bank. We've seen riders throughout the day, throughout the elite women's race, struggling for footholds on that section. Let's have a replay. Mason absolutely nails it. Look at that.
He did. He turned in really nice and sharp at the bottom. Took a much straighter line than a lot of the other riders, and it just got him up inside the majority of those footholds where that back wheel can skip away from underneath you towards the top of the climb. So nice line from Mason.
I think what this ride here kind of goes back to Cameron Mason's interviews earlier on in the season, and he hasn't quite maybe had the mid part of the season that he would have wanted, but this is a ride where he believes that he belongs at the front of these races now, and that's what we're seeing here. We're at very early days here on lap 2, but it's riding with this sort of confidence to lead out these races, given the makeup of the group that he's with.
Most definitely, and I think it's been a couple of seasons since he actually finished the season as high as he has seen throughout that year, if that makes sense. Always seems to be dropping off a little bit towards the end of the season. Potentially one of those things where he comes in, had a brilliant summer of training, hit some really kind of almost new highs within those early season races, then just dipped off ever so slightly, and potentially it's just taken this long to let that training block that he did at the beginning of December to really sink in, potentially take enough rest to actually kind of grow stronger from that hard training block that he did, and kind of hopefully seeing those come to fruition here today, just in time for the World Championships next weekend, where in Hulst you'd say that course would really suit him. See the riders taking air over there now.
You'll be slightly careful of your landing there, haven't you, given the pressures that you run in cross.
Most definitely. Cameron Mason's punctured.
He has, hasn't he? He's dropping back quickly here is Cameron Mason. That's such a shame for the British champion. He dropped back so quickly. And Mason back on there, and you can see he'll just have to watch it on the corners here as he goes round, as they're still attending to Joran Visura. But you can see Cameron Mason there just having to manage the bike on that corner so he didn't slide out.
Yeah, looks like he's unfortunate. It's one of those courses, we've spoken about it previous seasons. There's been a lot of punches to deal with. We were hoping potentially today we wouldn't see as many, but already a really, really important mechanical for Cameron Mason here.
That's going to be a tough one to try and come back from. It depends how much he can limit his losses here till he gets a bike change. You can see he's dropped off, as you will do. He's back behind Mace Hendricks, but at the head of the race. There's your pits. Thibaut Del Grosso, Mathieu Van der Poel, Thibaut Nace, Kevin Kuhn, Niels Van der Putte leading out. See Cameron Mason with that rear wheel puncture. He's just got to get into the pits now, the 7 Racing rider, and give chase. He's got good power, good fitness today, Cameron Mason. So now the chase is on, the charge back through the field for him. Nace here, he's just got to be mindful of Del Grosso and Van der Poel edging clear from this front group.
feels like they're just winding things up ever so slightly, pretty much everywhere on this course. It's not one of those courses where there's a real obvious attacking point. It's kind of fast and flowing. The climbs come at you fairly evenly. There's nothing super steep or super long to really make the difference in terms of climbing. So it is one of those courses where you gradually wind things up, force mistakes from other people in technical areas, those bankings, etc. And we're looking to see that from Del Grosso here. Much more sensible start from the Dutch champion compared to last weekend. Let's go get a replay now of the moment. I think Cameron Mason just started drifting back with that rear wheel puncher.
That was the point there. Del Grosso manages to pull clear. Thibaut Nace realises he has to come over the top. Kevin Kuhn and Niels van der Putte are still there. Thibaut Nace got to attach himself here to Mathieu van der Poel and Thibaut Del Grosso, Swiss champ, and the teammate of the two riders at the head of this group, Niels van der Putte behind. The cameras will go back here and just keep an eye on where Cameron Mason is as he tries to come back through the field. We're on lap 3 of 9 here on the penultimate round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup in Maasmechelen, and that news, the early leader, early pace setter Cameron Mason, unfortunately puncturing at the end of lap 2, having to take that bike change. And now here on lap 3, the British champion try and chase his way back up, but that's going to be a tall order to come back to a leading group made up of Dutch champion Thibaut Del Grosso, world champ Mathieu van der Poel, Belgian champion Thibaut Nace, Swiss champion Kevin Kuhn, and Niels van der Putte from the Alpecin de Koning team. So the camera's just focusing down through that chasing group, and that is made up of Mace Hendricks, Felipe Orts, Toon van der Bos, Jens Mikkels, Gerben Kuipers, Toon Arts, and then Cameron Mason. That goes down to our top 12, and then they are ahead of Taylor Thomas. Joris Nieuwenhuis is currently in 14th place. Lars van der Hoef currently in 17th.
Cameron Mason losing 22 seconds through that rear wheel puncher, unfortunately. So we'll keep an eye on his progress, like you say, coming through. But it's Thibaut Nace that wants to take the initiative. He wants to come through to lead this race as they head towards that really crucial cambered climb. But Del Grosso fighting hard to maintain that leading position. Nice outside to inside move from the Dutch champion, trying to fight Nace, and Nace eventually takes it. Brilliant move in the end. Great racing from those two.
Elbow to elbow. We saw this in Dendermonde between Thibaut Del Grosso and Thibaut Nace. But the two of them so technically gifted, the Belgian champ and the Dutch champ. It's side-by-side racing. As we get on to that bank, and how many times did we see that through the career of Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert? But Thibaut Nace gets over the top. Del Grosso has the dab. Van der Poel gets up, but stalls just a little bit at the top. We'll see what difference that makes to the Belgian champion.
We've seen on the previous laps, Nace get held up and have to climb off the bike much earlier than other riders on that section, so didn't want that to be the case this time round, and really took advantage of leading the group, rode up over the top of there, and there was a small mistake from Del Grosso behind. Van der Poel just about managed to ride it. Really nice from Manu there over the top of that one.
Indeed, let's have a replay of Thibaut Nace. It takes that sharp line in, as you can see. You can see a little bit of dirt and grass getting kicked up from the back wheel of Thibaut Nace, but rides that section of the course beautifully. So has he punctured?
Nace has punctured. Must have. It's either that or a crash.
So we're seeing this drama all the way here in this one. Let's have a replay, and it's a crash. Unfortunately.
Strange place to lose it on the uphill like that. I wonder if he'll get a better replay of actually what brought him down. He did look round towards the crowd. Maybe someone was hanging over the barriers there, but on an uphill climb like that, very strange to be lying on the floor at the top of that one.
Yeah, Mathieu van der Poel is through to the front and starting to make a move now. Thibaut Nace, can he get himself back over the top of the two riders ahead of him? Because Mathieu van der Poel is starting to get 5 meters, but he knows If you give Mathieu van der Poel 5 meters, he'll take a minute in these races. And now here on lap 3, starts to make his move.
Yeah, these two with a nice little gap. Feels like a few riders have had their go, and now Van der Poel comes through to the front, thinking they've had their play time. Time to go now. 20 minutes into this race, his turn to go to the front and turn the screw.
Is indeed. It's the two teammates as Van der Poel takes some good air over the top. Thibaut Nace, looks like that crash might have knocked the stuffing out of him a little bit.
So often when you crash like that, it just knocks your rhythm. The body's hurting a little bit. You kind of take a little while to get back up to speed as such. And that's the last thing you need when these two are making their way clear. Looks like Van der Poel just takes a good look round, see where his younger teammate is exactly.
So coming round at the end of lap 3. That crash costly for Thibaut Nace, but Mathieu van der Poel and Thibaut Del Grosso, 7 seconds is the gap to the chasers. It's not the end of the world, but this is Mathieu van der Poel and Thibaut Del Grosso that we are talking about. Is 6 laps to go this time as we head out. Felipe Orts, Mace Hendricks, Gerben Kuipers going through, Toon van der Bos, Jente Mikkels running out the top 10. Cameron Mason after that puncture, still at 25 seconds. He lost about 22 with that puncture. Van der Poel, you could see they're just trying to manage that camber of that bank, just having to skip along. But look at the power that Mathieu van der Poel is throwing down here over Thibaut Del Grosso, and that really does, Ian, that puts into perspective when the devastating effect that Mathieu van der Poel's power has on these courses and these races.
Great camera angle there, just to show the way that he kicked out of that corner. But rather impressively, Del Grosso makes his way back to the wheel of the world champion on that next section. So although he didn't go with it straight out of that corner, didn't have quite the same explosive power, but just rides it back through those turns and up over those small jumps.
Does indeed. Our chasers, the Swiss champ from Maasmechelen on the front. Let's have a replay. Ooh, over the top there, and unfortunately. So Felipe Nystrom goes down, unfortunately, our Costa Rican rider. Along the side of the mirror wall, and Van der Poel looks like he is edging clear. He is putting Del Grosso into difficulty with these bursts of power out of the corners, and this gap now starting to really open.
It really is. It's kind of that situation where Van der Poel makes that big effort out of the corner, and then on the next section of the course, he just relaxes, tries to recover from that big sprint, and that's where Del Grosso comes back. Just as he gets back to the wheel, Van der Poel kicks again out of another slow corner, and it just begins to add up time after time. There's only so many times Del Grosso is going to make his way back to the wheel of Van der Poel riding like this.
He is indeed, and he's doing everything he can, is Thibaut Del Grosso, to stay with his world champion teammate. Our chasers, it does look like that crash of Thibaut Nace when he was leading has just knocked the stuffing out of the Belgian champion. Unfortunately, Del Grosso doing everything that he can here to try and stay with Mathieu van der Poel.
Looks like Nace has just gathered him ever so slightly. Moved past Van der Poel within that group and holding the wheel of Kuhn. Whether he can get past him and make inroads towards Del Grosso now at this point, and that gap already up to 13 seconds from Del Grosso back to Kevin Kuhn.
Our chasing trio have Felipe Orts chasing them down in the background, and Felipe, has someone gone down on the planks, it sounds like. Felipe, it sounds like, has gone down there. We just heard a little whoa from the crowd there. Back to the head of the race, and the gap is growing. Mathieu van der Poel to Thibaut Del Grosso, and Thibaut get back in here, but there's no gifts here. You've got to stay with him when he goes. They might be teammates, but there's going to be no sort of waiting around to make sure he's with him.
Most definitely not. You don't wait for a guy like Del Grosso. You just don't know what can happen. We've already seen punches for riders within the race here today, and you can lose 20 seconds just like that. So Van der Poel, I'm sure, just wants to get out front and then be able to manage the gap, take some of the rockier sections. He's got a front wheel puncher, has he?
Van der Poel, has he punctured now? Let's have a look. We'll get a closer look. Thibaut Nace has now got to the front of this group. Van der Putter goes through. As I said, this Maasmechelen course, as Van der Poel, he looks like, you can see he's trying to control that bike, and it does look like he's got an issue.
Yeah, it looked like he was just losing the front wheel once more through there. Need a better shot, but slightly strange that he's losing the front wheel so often.
It has, yeah. And that's so rare. That's the one thing throughout Mathieu van der Poel's career, is that it's so rare that he punctures. He's almost got a charmed life when it comes to tyres.
It is, but we've seen a few from him this year. He had the double puncture at Zonhoven. Off the top of my head, he definitely had another puncture elsewhere, a rear wheel puncture. Can't quite put my finger on exactly where it was, but we've definitely seen him puncture more often than normal this season. Whether it's just potentially riding a little bit hard to Del Grosso, not going past, whether he even realises at this point whether Van der Poel has a problem or not. But as I was saying in commentary, Van der Poel, you can lose 20 seconds just like that. Del Grosso finally realises and goes past the world champion. You can lose 20 seconds just like that. It was just after the pit that I noticed him losing that front wheel on one of those corners. So he's got an awfully long way to go. He's going to lose way more than 20 seconds.
You can see Mathieu van der Poel shaking his head, trying to control that front wheel puncture here for Mathieu van der Poel. This is a huge moment in this race today, as Thibaut Del Grosso tries to go clear now. How much time can Mathieu van der Poel limit his losses here to Thibaut Del Grosso to get round, to get that bike change, and that will spread throughout the teams behind that Van der Poel has that front wheel puncture.
You're going to lose way more time with a front wheel puncture compared to a rear wheel puncture, as we saw Cameron Mason earlier in the race deal with. He was also much closer to the pit. Van der Poel's got an awfully long way to go. He's got all this last section of the course, including the start finishing straight area.
Into the pits, lap 4 of 9. And Mathieu van der Poel losing time. Even someone with the silky smooth skills of Mathieu van der Poel will lose time, but you can see the way he is still managing to power on here with that front wheel puncture, as Thibaut Del Grosso of Alpecin Premier Tech seizing the opportunity for the front wheel puncture from his team leader to try and go clear here. And this is a huge opportunity as well for the likes of Thibaut Nace to try and get back into this race. And you can see here, Ian, from the aerial shots, how much Van der Poel is having to fight with that bike to try and hold any kind of line through these corners.
It's just so difficult to get the bike turned with a front wheel puncture. You saw the extra power that he's having to put out to even just ride the most simple section of course, and that's something we always underestimate when we see punchers in these cross races. We always talk about the time lost through the actual puncture, but the energy that Van der Poel's had to put out on this kind of quarter to half a lap that he's done on that front wheel puncture is huge. You saw the way he rode with the sand at the same speed as Nace, but that comes at an energy cost. Putting out more watts to go the same speed as the other riders through a section of course like that. He's got to deal with this camber, which is going to be awfully tricky with a front wheel flat, and then he'll eventually be round to that first pit where he can finally get a new bike.
Something we don't see very often. Mathieu van der Poel losing time here to the puncture, but this will set up the second half of this race into an absolute thriller, as Van der Poel, you can see there, as Ian Field said, just trying to manage that bike on the camber. Now to the bits, that's going to be a welcome sight for the world champ to be able to get a fresh bike. And now the chase begins, and Thibaut Del Grosso has an opportunity, as does that leading group. 20 seconds, it looks like, is the time lost through that puncture. He's always the king when it comes to managing these kind of issues within races. We don't see them very often, but now, Ian, this sets us up for the second half of this race.
It really does. We're now going to see Van der Poel go all out for 30 minutes. Just 30 minutes left of racing to come back to the front of this race and try and keep that winning streak going.
Wow. If you're tuning in for the first time today, welcome along. Drama. We had a big crash straight off the start. Pimron Hart, Joran Visura, who was getting the medical attention. Lap 1, Cameron Mason attacking, and then at the end of lap 2, after the British champ had led 3, also had a puncture and a bike change, lost just over 20 seconds. We had a crash for Thibaut Nace. Mathieu Van der Poel starting to make that move that we see so often, only for that puncture on lap 4, costly. And now, after getting that bike change, he will be on an absolute tear through this field. And now he comes back into sight on that world champion's bike. He's got to chase up. 23 seconds is the time gap. And we know what Van der Poel can do on these courses. He can take 20 seconds on a lap at the head of the race.
He most certainly can, but he's got to risk absolutely everything in these 30 minutes of racing, and that potentially means another puncture, just pushing it through these sections where we have seen rocks coming through the surface. I was saying in commentary just before he punctured that he would need to build a gap so that if he did have a puncture or a problem, then he would just drop back to the group behind and then be able to go again. But he hadn't been able to establish that gap. When he had that puncture, he only had 2 seconds over Del Grosso at this point. The race is on.
The race is most definitely on. 20 seconds is the gap from our leader, Thibaut Del Grosso, to his teammate Mathieu Van der Poel in 5th. If you weren't with us at the top of the show, Van der Poel chasing the record of Sven Nys of 50 career World Cup victories. If he won today and won tomorrow, he would then take the out-and-out lead with 51 victories, but he is now on the back foot and chasing. It is Dutch champion Thibaut Del Grosso of Alpecin Premier Tech, leading from Thibaut Nace. The Belgian champion of that bowl was Vetsekeringen. Hospital Lions ahead of Niels van der Putte, the Belgian from Alpecin Premier Tech. Kevin Kuhn still in 4th, and then Mathieu Van der Poel is 5th. Gerben Kuipers 6th. Felipe Ort 7th. Mace Hendricks, Toon van der Mos, Jente Mikkels round out the top 10 with Cameron Mason currently in 11th spot. Thibaut Del Grosso, big opportunity here for the Dutch champion. He's just got to here. He's still got a long way to go in this race, but we know what he can do. He is a rider that will just seize and relish this opportunity now.
He most definitely will, but it looks like to me Thibaut Nace just coming back 1 second at a time here and there. More time lost for Del Grosso if Nace can clean this section. Let's look at it, into it. Nice line, but no, loses control of the front wheel. Van der Putte rides it really nicely.
It is a sketchy section. You can see riders just cutting wide and going straight up. Kevin Kuhn rides it. Van der Poel rides it as well. That'll be a fraction of a second here and there. Brought back. That was a good opportunity there for Thibaut Nace. And it's just that risk versus reward on that section of the course, isn't it?
Most definitely, speed is your friend in that section. The more speed you can carry into that section means that you have less angle. You can go straight up the hillside and power up over the top and not have to deal with as many footholds as the riders carrying less speed traverse further across that hillside. That's where we saw Nace go down. There is a rock just at the top of there. Whether he caught a pedal on that or something earlier in the race, Van der Poel up over the top of there. He's bringing that gap down now. It was up 23 seconds when he got that bike change, already down to 17 seconds to Del Grosso leading.
Is indeed, and Kevin Koen. Is Kevin Koen doing the right thing there? Leading out there from Van der Poel.
Kevin Koen's just doing his own race.
Doesn't have an opportunity now. Van der Poel's just come over the top of him. And this is for the Swiss champ, just try and ride here and stay with Mathieu Van der Poel for as long as possible. Lap 5 of 9. It's 6 seconds between our leader and our two chasers, with Mathieu Van der Poel hunting them down like the big hunter behind, and they've got a big opportunity, these three, to try and stay clear, but a little stall there going into the sandpit for Thibaut Nys, a fraction of a second loss, and you can just sense this is an ominous presence of Van der Poel through there. It's that kind of the frustration now that he's got to use to try and get back to the head of this race.
Most definitely. Just a small slip for Nys just before that sand pit. Unfortunately, lost all his speed momentum at a crucial time, so he'll be losing time. I thought next time check he'll go up to maybe 7-8 seconds till Del Grosso. Del Grosso rode the sand really, really nicely. He's back down towards the finishing straight once more. Another lap will be completed, and Van der Poel is soon going to make contact with the two chasers.
Just you can see there, it's, as you said, he's got to go all in this one as Thibaut Del Grosso comes through at the end of the lap. In the background is Thibaut Nys and Niels van der Putte, and then the world champion hunting them down behind. That front wheel puncture for Van der Poel with 4 laps to go this time. Thibaut Del Grosso will be able to look up here, and he'll look across and he'll see the white jersey with the rainbow bands of the world champion. Onto the off camber, and Del Grosso rides it perfectly. Nys, just, you can see they're just managing the wheels as they slip and slide. He'll look across as well and see Van der Poel coming. Del Grosso's just got to ride his own race here, as he can't think of Mathieu Van der Poel at all in this one.
No, he's just trying to get to the finish line as quickly as possible at this point, as smoothly as possible as well, as it's proving to be absolutely key on this course here today. Looking at the lap times, unbelievably, Van der Poel with that puncher had done a 7:04 on the previous lap, a 7:22 with the puncher, and then a 7:04 after it. So in the grand scheme of things, not losing as much time as I thought he was going to on that section of the course with a front wheel puncher. He managed that beautifully.
This fast flowing section of the course, and Thibaut Nys leading out. They've got to try and get this group back to Thibaut Del Grosso if they can. It's just 5 seconds is the gap from Del Grosso to those chasers. Thibaut Nys just tries to sew this gap back up together, but Van der Poel, the speed of the world champion, rides back onto the group.
Just goes to show that raw speed and that lap time that he's got in the bag that we've seen in previous races, that kind of 15-20 seconds that he takes out of absolutely everyone in one lap. But this time round, he's had to use that to come back towards the front of the race, as opposed to make a gap off the front compared to everyone else. So it's going to be interesting to see today whether he has a bit more in the tank compared to previous races where he's normally ahead and then just managing the gap.
Nys, Van der Putte and Van der Poel are those chasers. Thibaut Del Grosso is going to get some company pretty soon, you would say, looking at this chasing group.
Del Grosso doing the classic him and Van der Putte are like, always stretching out that lower back. As soon as they get towards kind of the 30-40 minute part of racing, Del Grosso stretching that back. Once that back and top of the glutes tighten up, it's really difficult to get the power out. So taking every opportunity he can just to try and stretch it out, loosen it off, and then go again on the pedals.
We have 3 chasers. Mathieu van der
Heb je het
Poel,
mee?
Thibaut Nace, and Niels van der Putter chasing down Tibor Del Grosso. 4
Het werkt hier nog
seconds
steeds.
is the
Ja,
gap,
dat geeft
and
wel.
he will sense, he will be able to see and hear the crowd roaring on that chasing group behind. And they're not far away from
Je mond
making
doet
contact with him, which will give us a leading group of 4.
It's going to be all to play for with just 20 minutes of racing left. Group of 4, surely. Del Grosso's probably just going to ease back ever so slightly, try and get that last bit of recovery in.
Je moet nog douchen en al.
Does mean 3 Elfsin Premier Tech riders in this group of 4.
Ik ga er ook mee douchen.
Nee.
Waarom niet?
Ik had geen.
Hoe zou die zijn nog?
Van der Poel just wants to move up within the group as they are approaching that standard climb once more. Probably the trickiest section of the
Waar?
course. The most important in terms of
Oh, met een probleem.
Our leaders come together. The race here in Maasmechelen turning into an absolute thriller today. But where is the victor going? Who is going to run out the winner of this one? You have the national champion of the Netherlands leading from the national champion of Belgium and that rainbow jersey of world champion Niels van der Putter, the teammate of Del Grosso, and van der Putter on the back in the blue, lead into the climb. Who can nail it? Del Grosso gets over, and Nace delays Van der Poel, who just slides back and slides out. Couple of seconds lost there for Van der Poel.
That's why positioning is so key on that climb. You see as the front rider just slows at the top, it means the riders behind just that concertina effect that we always speak about. Del Grosso slows, foot down, a bigger mistake from Nace. It just means Van der Poel had absolutely nowhere to go. And unfortunately for him, fell kind of to the right, the long way down as such on that camber. Saw him on the previous corner, just fiddling with that shoe, maybe tightening the bubber on that Shimano shoe.
We're seeing adversity that doesn't normally affect Mathieu van der Poel, and Thibaut Nace looks back over the shoulder, just stretching out that back as well, as Ian said, just trying to ease the back. You sense though here, Ian, that Van der Poel's going to be getting mad now.
Most definitely, you almost saw a small shake of the head, which is so rare from Van der Poel in that situation. Just getting caught up in someone else's problems. He's had to deal with that puncher as well. Keeps fiddling with that shoe on the right foot, whether he's just uncomfortable with that or whether those bows know he's fiddling with the left one now. Just doing those shoes up once more, getting into the rhythm of things. But on the back of that group now, needs to go again at some point. Had tried to move up and then obviously lost that on that climb when Nace's problem hindered him.
We saw when Mathieu van der Poel made his move for that front wheel puncture, the straight line power that the world champion has. But he's got to get over the top of the 3 riders that are within the group. Chooses a different
Ken
line.
je dat je springt? Want het is nu het meest verse wegje dat ik ooit heb gehad. Is dat beter?
Ja, maar ik weet wel. Daarom douche ik hier, hallo.
Zeg ik?
Control of his own destiny towards the end of the circuit.
Sinds dus.
Ja.
He's
Okay,
moved
we do.
through kind of under the radar
Nee,
in
mag
this
ook
race,
niet.
but doing a good ride, setting some good lap times.
Maar gewoon een vrienden is over hem, jongen. Dat is klein. Ik heb geen space.
Difference in speed a lot of the time. He just, he almost, you can see little errors creep in when he is trying to, when his pace is being dictated to by others. We're going to come round at the end of lap 6, and we have a 4-rider leading group this deep into the race here in Maasmechelen. We are almost waiting and sensing for the next move of the world champion who's going to come forward.
Hier, maar staat een beetje.
Maar een beetje, nee. Echt niet veel heeft gehad. Dat is mooi.
3 laps to go. Felipe Ox, Kevin Kuhn, Mace Hendricks in 8th position. Del Grosso leading out.
Wow.
Mace has got to keep
Oh, dat witje is echt erg. Of ligt daar gewoon aan mij?
Nace has got to be super careful here with the teammate of Van der Poel in the middle of that gap. But when Van der Poel goes, sometimes there is no answer from anyone else, and is the moment? I feel like this is deja vu again, almost on exactly the same section of the course that we saw his first attack, winding things up once more. Del Grosso did a good move to accelerate, follow the world champion, and that means that even if he can't hold the wheel, he's going to hold up Thibaut Nace in the same situation. Just looks like he hasn't quite got the same speed as Van der Poel through this section of the course. Van der Poel, Del Grosso, Nace, you can see it's just trying to see if there's an opportunity to get past typical Del Grosso here and find a way to stay with Mathieu Van der Poel when he goes, as we go along the side of the mirror wall here.
Auw, Bintje.
Maar...
Already, you would say we've seen him do this so many times in his career when he gets this sort of gap and he is never seen again. The only difference today is this is the second big move that he's had to make within the 45 minutes of racing. And Nace now come back to the wheel of the world champion. He's got to close that gap down now, otherwise it will be race over. It's got to go and it's got to go quickly for Thibaut Nace.
Nou, het is net de laatste keer van de cross. Het is nog 2,5 ronde of zo.
Meeting the challenge here of Mathieu Van der Poel, who's making his second race-winning move, his second bid for glory here. He's holding the gap right now, but Van der Poel no let up so far. Carries good speed over the plane. And Nace and Van der Poel will be able to have a look here. And Thibaut Nace get himself back into contention. Lap 7 of 9 here in Maasmechelen, and world champion Mathieu Van der Poel drops the power and goes supersonic past the pits here. Stretches that gap out over Thibaut Nace in second spot, putting that misfortune of that front wheel puncture behind him. And now just starting to edge clear. Does the young Belgian champion have anything here to try and come back? He gave himself a glance over to Thibaut Del Grosso here. Nace has just got to try and hold this for as long as possible here now, Ian. He absolutely has, but Van der Poel really pushing things through that section. He lost the rear wheel just before that bridge, lost a little bit of speed and momentum before that uphill. Would have cost him a fraction of a second, but they're coming up to that absolute key cambered climb now. Can Van der Poel get up there? He doesn't. He stalls at the top. Thibaut Nace, can he get up? Oh no, seconds lost there from Thibaut Nace as Del Grosso and Van der Poel come over the top. That might be the moment that Van der Poel starts to build a race-winning advantage. That could be it. Van der Poel wasn't perfect over the top of there, but as we saw, it feels like that section of the course has got a lot worse through the race. A lot trickier to ride now, more and more footsteps on the top of that climb. And Nace just got caught out, got deep in that loamy soil, had to put both feet down. Luckily held up Del Grosso and Van der Poel in the process, but that gap now much more than 3 seconds. It is, and you start on that climb, it's changed every lap with hundreds of feet, and mistakes and crashes and trips and falls and everything. It's become so tricky to ride as the afternoon's gone on.
It has completely different to the opening lap, where it felt like as long as you got good speed and a half decent line on it, you could carry your speed up over the top of it. But even now, with the speed and power of Van der Poel with a good line, even he was struggling and had to put a little quick dab down at the top to carry speed up over the top of it.
A completely different race to what we see week in, week out, with Van der Poel going, puncturing and having to go again and just sliding out there. That's been so tricky throughout the day, that entry to the sand.
It has. It's a little bit of deeper mud that we can't quite see on this camera angle, but there have been a number of riders caught out in it. It just means you lose all that speed before the sand and makes that a lot harder than potentially it would be if you're coming in at, say, 30k an hour.
Yeah, 12 seconds now is the gap from our leader to the chasers. Takes that bank. Maybe hopping it, taking a bit of air over the top of that throughout the day today. Mathieu Van der Poel head off with his trio, Del Grosso, Nace and Van der Putter. Niels Van der Putter is now the rider through to the front for Alpecin Premier Tech, leading out from Thibaut Nace. Through the line, and we go through 2 laps to go this time for our leader. And Mathieu Van der Poel as well will know, he'll recognise the danger of the punctures on this Maasmechelen course at 13 seconds. It only takes another mishap and they'll be back with him.
Absolutely, but I think that gap is just getting up to the point now where potentially he can ride some of the sections which are danger points for punchers just slightly easier, doesn't have to go flying through them at 110%, can just ease off ever so slightly, knowing that that gap is up to 13 seconds now. You'd want it to be a little bit more, up to more towards the 30-second point. It would be a lot more comfortable for him. See, Van der Putter, he's the one that's felt like he's been on the back foot, always at the back of that chasing group, but now has come to the fore and looks the strongest rider out of those 3 now, doesn't he?
Here in a fight for the top 10. If you weren't with us at the start of the race, Cameron Mason leading out. Really confident start from the British champion. Unfortunately, a puncture for him put paid to his race at the front, but he'll go into World Championship week and knowing that he's got some good form in the legs. 14 seconds we've been given is the gap from Mathieu Van der Poel to Niels Van der Putter, Thibaut Nace and Thibaut Del Grosso. Felipe Ort having another blinder of a day. 22 seconds in 5th place for him. 6th for Gerben Kuipers, having a great day out. As Gerben Kuipers, Kevin Good still in 7th, the Swiss champ. Mace Hendricks in 8th. Tom van der Bos, then Cameron Mason. That is our top 10. Some other notables. Leo Bicio is in 16th spot, the French rider. Now, fastest lap of the race, lap 7 for Mathieu Van der Poel. 6:56 by Van der Poel on lap 7.
Yeah, just putting in that lap that is way fast that kind of anyone else can get near. Only 6 seconds, I say only 6 seconds, but in these very fast conditions, that is a huge margin to have over everyone else, especially after the huge effort that it took to ride on that front flat and then continue with the effort all the way to the front of the race once more. And then he's put in that lap time to go clear of the chasers.
What's impressive is second spot in the fastest lap is Felipe Orts with a 7:02.6.
Really, really impressive from the Spanish champion. And that was on lap 7 as well. So really getting stronger as the race goes on.
Poel got a rear puncture now. I'm looking at that back tyre of Van der Poel. It looks quite flat.
It is flat.
Van der Poel's punctured
Another
again.
puncture. Unbelievable. Just so many rocks, and Van der Poel on the front.
Drama in Maasmechelen from start to finish. This race is just delivering lap after lap after lap here in today's penultimate round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup. Mathieu van der Poel, he won't lose as much time with the rear flat as that front flat, as you said earlier on, Ian.
No, nowhere near as bad in terms of controlling the bike, and he is up towards that second pit on the course right now, so hasn't got to do as far either. He's got to do this U-turn, but then he will be towards that second pit. He'll obviously lose a fair bit of time actually changing the bike, but maybe has just taken one too many risks with the tyre pressure here today.
It's that little, that sort of bank where everyone's been hopping over the top, taking air because they've had to because of the speed. But Van der Poel comes in to the pits for a bike change. The chasers will see that, and Thibaut Nace attacking to try and get back up to Mathieu van der Poel here. 2 laps to go. Is this an opportunity for that chasing group to get themselves back in there? But Van der Poel straight away will just put the hammer down once again to try and take this one clear. We know how much power that he's got in the tank, but he's using a lot of power and energy today, Ian, with these continuous attacks and trying to come back from these punctures.
Absolutely. You see the energy and impetus now that Nace is riding with. He could see the world champion just ahead, but he slipped out on the bridge as he was halfway up it, just tucked the front wheel, lost it, and lost the momentum towards the top of it. This is absolutely key now. Can Van der Poel ride? He does. Now watch Thibaut Nace. Can he ride it cleanly? Follows the same line as Van der Poel, but can't quite carry the same speed. Has to put a foot down. Here comes Felipe Orts.
Felipe Orts is on an absolute ride today as well, in 5th position, the Spanish champion. And Van der Poel is holding this advantage. It's not huge. Van der Poel is in front of Thibaut Nace here. There was an opportunity. There was a glimmer of an opportunity there for them to get back to Van der Poel with that bike change.
I think Van der Poel doing a wonderful job for his team leader here, going to the front. I'm sure he's slowing things down through the parts where Nace can't get past. Surprised that Nace hasn't forced his way past the absolute Premier Tech rider at this point. You see defensive line from Van der Poel up towards that turn. Felipe Orts, the Spanish champion, only a few seconds back from the chasers now.
And we know if Felipe Orts gets back onto this group, he will take a flyer over the top, because we know what it's like.
Absolutely. Nace looks a little bit more concerned about what's behind him than what's ahead of him right now. I think he made quite a big effort there when he saw the problem for Van der Poel, put a big effort in, and potentially feeling it at this point. 55 minutes of brutal racing on this super fast course this afternoon. Potentially some fatigue in the legs at this point. Van der Poel now just over a lap of racing to go. Surely no more problems for the world champion at this point.
It's been a savage, drama-filled race here in Maasmechelen today as we go into the sandpit. Thibaut Nace starting to look maybe a little bit fatigued here, the Belgian champ.
He does. That was his moment on that cambered climb. If he had ridden that completely cleanly, I think the gap would have been only about 2 seconds to the world champion. But as it was, I think the key moment was losing position to Van der Poel in the group. Van der Poel has done a really good job of allowing that gap to Van der Poel to just open up ever so slightly. Looks like no one particularly has the legs to really take it on out of those 3 chasers. And I wouldn't be surprised if Felipe Orts makes it back onto this group as they come through the line with 1 lap of racing to go.
1 lap to go for the world champion, Mathieu van Van der Poel goes through. The clock is ticking. The chasing group not into the straight yet, but Thibaut Nace leading through. Thibaut Del Grosso and Niels van der Putte. Felipe Orts, the Spanish champion, can he get himself back into contention for yet another podium here today? The world champ, though, he needs no issues on this final lap. The gap is 11 seconds, but that is not safe by any means.
It really isn't. We've seen him losing way over that in terms of puncher time earlier in the race. That second puncher didn't cost him as much with that rear wheel puncher, and it wasn't too far from that second pit. But I'm sure he's going to ride with some caution over the course of this last lap, really only put the hammer down where he knows there's no risks of punctures.
Mace Hendricks leading through in 8th, just ahead of Cameron Mason, who leads in this group from Toon van der Bos, and Jente Mikkels Mason, who started so strongly and led early on before his own puncture put pay to his time in the front group. Final lap, this gap though growing from Van der Poel to the chasers. Thibaut Nace has been all in multiple times on the chase here, and you can see Del Grosso trying to come through to the front. Just that bobble there just pulls his foot out, but flowing, the playful style of Mathieu Van der Poel really rides well on this Maasmechelen, of course.
Does, absolutely flying through that section. You saw how bumpy that section was. Literally ejected Thibaut Del Grosso's left foot as he went over that real bumpy section. But now it's that man, Dutch champion, who was the only man to initially go with Van der Poel on that first attack. He comes back to the front of the chasers. They all look across to see where the Spanish champion is, Felipe Orts.
Felipe, another rider that we know, he's a very good championship rider, is Felipe Orts, 1 week out from the World Championships, where Mathieu Van der Poel will look to try and take his 8th cyclocross world title and become the most successful male cyclocross rider in history. Looking here and looking good to equal Sven Nace's career, 50 World Cup wins with this ride. And his 2 teammates behind have done a great job.
They really, really have for him today, slowing Nace down at critical points within the race. Looks like Van der Poel is just riding with a little bit of caution on this final lap. Just
sweep of the podium here today. If they can get it, Nace knows that he needs the points. Around into the finishing straights, you knock him down, he gets back up. It's a heavyweight champion of the world performance for Mathieu Van der Poel as Del Grosso and Van der Putte make it a 1-2-3 for the Alpecin Premier Tech team. Thibaut Nace takes the 4th spot. And it is another great performance from Spanish champion. Felipe Orts comes through to take 5th place. But Ian, Phil, what a thriller.
well, I wasn't expecting that today. It just goes to show how